Yeah, we will. Good evening. This is a special meeting of the Olentangy School Board. It is Monday, July 18th at 6 p.m. And with that, we'll call the meeting to order. First order of business is to appoint a treasurer pro tem. And we have a resolution. We just need to fill the blank in. Be it resolved pursuant to the Ohio Revised Code that...
I nominate Mr. Bartz.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
I wasn't coming from O'Brien, so thank you.
Any discussion?
I think Kern's going to turn his license in.
And so that, well, let's call the roll.
Mrs. Feasel,
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien,
Yes.
Mrs. Patrick,
Yes.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mr. Bartz. I will abstain from voting for myself.
So 4 and 1 abstention. Mr. Bartz is hereby appointed as the district treasurer pro tem to perform all of the duties and functions of the district's regular treasurer during the period of this meeting. And just for those who may not be aware, the role of the treasurer is also the board's secretary. So with that, if you would please call the roll, Mr. Bartz.
Mrs. Feasel,
Yes, here.
Mr. O'Brien,
Here.
Mrs. Patrick,
Here.
Mr. King,
Here.
and Mr. Bartz is also here.
And with that, we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. May we have a motion to approve the agenda? I'm not aware of any changes.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
any discussion? Would you please call the roll?
Mr. O'Brien,
Yes.
Mrs. Patrick,
Yes.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mrs. Feasel,
Yes.
and Mr. Bartz also says yes.
So the agenda is approved 5-0. So we have one discussion item, and that is the treasurer search process. And just a couple of things to point out. Mr. Kern will be providing for the August 4th meeting his official resignation letter. And our goal is then that evening we would also appoint an interim treasurer. So August 4th. So I would like to just start the conversation. I'll just make 3 points. There's no priority to this. It's just 3 options that occurred to me in terms of a search process, how we would go about that. Again, not in any order of preference on my part, just here they are. Number 1, that we would conduct with a search firm. We've done that in the past. Let them pretty much run the show. There are certain things that, of course, we would always do as a board, which is our role, and that is to create the short list, to create interviews, whether it's 1 or 2 or 3 series of interviews. That's for us to determine, make the final decision, and, of course, negotiate a contract. But in terms of the announcements and solicitations and checking of resumes and getting the word out and all those protocols, we can do that with a search firm. Or option 2, we could internalize most of that beginning part where through our communications particularly and our human resources and also administrative assistant, we can post job descriptions, profiles, that sort of information, gather resumes, and move on from there. Or the third option, again, just putting this on the table so that we can have a discussion, is a combination of the two. So for instance, there are certain things that we might decide that we are in good position to take advantage of our internal resources. So for instance, just an example of posting the job opportunity and what the job description is, rather than paying an outside firm to do that. And then maybe the outside firm would be doing the reference checks or suggesting people that we should contact. So the option 3 is sort of a combination. So with that,
I just have a question.
sure.
When is Brian Kern's last day? Because I don't know. I just know from what I've seen on Twitter that he was at the Dublin School Board meeting when they voted to hire him. So I don't even know when his last day is.
It's August 31, isn't it?
That's what he's indicated to me, is that his letter of resignation will come August 4th, and his last day would be, his start date in Dublin is September 1st.
Yeah, he had told me, he told me that August 31.
But I think it's a good point that we get, we get that in writing as quickly as possible from Mr. Kern. I know he put out an email to staff. I think we were CC'd on that email. I think he had the 31st date in there.
He didn't have a date.
Okay, I do remember. But we should probably get him to nail those
Yeah,
dates down.
I asked him
Yeah.
about a letter to staff, and I also asked him about, when are you going to give us your letter of resignation?
Okay, I know he's in Florida for the week.
Yeah, he's on vacation this week. So,
I just didn't like to see the superintendent of the school district that's hiring him put the information out, and I see it in social media
I agree.
before I was even contacted.
I will follow up. I know he's on vacation.
I do know his effective start date is September. His start date in Dublin is September 1st, so it is his intention to be with us until September 31st.
Yeah,
So how
August.
so
August,
given that, how do
August.
transition days work?
I don't know what kind of transition days he has in his contract. I would assume if he would do a transition day over there, he'd take a vacation day here.
Okay,
That's how it's been here.
let's just make sure that happens, that's all.
I'm writing it down. We'll check that.
I mean, I don't know what his status of his accrued vacation and all of those things are.
Michelle was kind enough to put on our Outlook information that we used in the prior search, like schedule, and Kevin sent some information out this afternoon likewise that you had from your notes from the previous ones.
Yeah, what I sent out was just the contract from OSBA last time, the brochure, and a draft timeline.
Okay. So, thoughts, people, about the process?
So I mean,
If you have a different option,
yeah, I'll start.
jump in.
So one, I like the opportunity to use a firm. In particular, last time, I think what we learned, there was kind of a point of view that was kind of locked in on an approach that once we went through and used a firm, we were able to find Mr. Kern, right, who probably wouldn't have applied had the firm not reached out to him in particular. So I think using a firm is going to get us probably a more complete candidate pool, and it gives us the opportunity to also do some proactive outreach instead of waiting for people to come to us. You know, it gives us the opportunity to, through the firm, to tap some people on the shoulder and say, hey, you know, are you interested in this opportunity? Much like, frankly, happened with Mr. Kern, that the Dublin search firm found him and encouraged him to apply for that opportunity, which I think would be similar here, the use of a firm. Now, how much do we want to spend on a firm? That's where we can do some proposals. I also like the opportunity to have the firm do some pre-screening, background check, those kinds of things.
Yeah, I realize that we could probably use some internal staff, but school's starting, and they have their regular jobs to do. And so that's why I feel more comfortable using a search firm, because that's what they do.
I think it was less than $10,000 last year.
Yeah.
6,400, I think is what it said, plus expenses.
Plus, and the brochure was extra.
So my question would be
Which
then,
they just PDF'd. There
Right,
wasn't a significant investment
we don't
in
pay for the
brochure.
printing.
And with the fact that the brochure's already drafted, it just needs to be updated.
yeah, that would be my question is what could they duplicate? And is it possible that because now we have Krista on board full-time, or we didn't have Krista on board full-time in the superintendent search, could she bear some of the burden for the
But
PR and the
Krista is going
announcement
to
or
be
not?
involved in this rebranding and the naming of the high school and the attendance boundaries committee.
Yeah, but I would assume, though, just for the sake of argument, that those things are ongoing and they would not necessarily clash, would they, as far as dates? Because we'd have to have this search process, everything done over the next 30 to 60 days. I don't know, is her rebranding?
My
Due in 90
issue, though,
or
another thing
60
is
days?
we're the board, and I hate relying on staff. We don't employ those people. We don't hire them. The superintendent hires them. You know, we as a board, yeah, we approve their contracts, but they're not our staff. And I work for a board of directors, and I like keeping that line so that, because I don't like to take directions from my board members. They're not supposed to be giving me directions. They're supposed to come through my boss and then come to me. And I just think we need to keep that line of the board separate from our staff.
But-
Because we don't
yeah.
ever want to be giving, in a position where we're giving staff members a job to do that should be coming from the superintendent. And that's just my own, that's my philosophy, that we stay separate from the
I
staff.
think there should be a good level of coordination. So to the extent we get through this process, we have a candidate, we want to put an announcement out. I want to make sure that Krista looked at that release, was comfortable with the tone, the messaging, the positioning, right? So why, I don't think we're at this either or stage where it's either the firm or inside. I think we go with a firm and we leverage resources and coordinate so that the message is clear, it gets out to the proper channels and.
So I guess one
It's
question
consistent.
then I'd ask, Mindy, you weren't part of the search process for Mr. Rafe, but then for the rest of the board, the question I would have is, were we comfortable with Cheryl Ryan's input on that last search? Because I think there was some, would she still
Yeah.
be running that if we?
Well, I don't even
That's
know.
up to us.
If OSBA were
Decide.
selected, if they were the
Right.
one that got selected, I mean, that would be.
Yeah.
Because I thought that was a good search. We found Mr. Rafe, but he was already lurking about the premises. But it's just a question of, from a procedural standpoint, because there were a couple of hiccups here and there.
Yep.
So I would just, if nothing else, maybe that's just a precursor to, we would want to make sure that we get some of that, if that's the way that the decision is, we want to get that ironed out up front maybe and have a discussion about who the
Well,
lead search person is on that.
Fair, and the way that we kind of ran the process, it was very consistent, treasurer superintendent is, we'll have this meeting, we'll agree to a rough approach. We'll bring the firms in, one night, or even just do a paper RFP and decide off the paper RFP, we can,
Right.
because I do think time is of the essence on this one, and if we do like a whole meeting for selection and then start the process, that could cost a couple weeks, so we could try to push both of those together in one night to select the firm and determine process, because each firm's going to have their own unique approach to process, which is how much time do you want to do for application process, how do you want to engage the community, because like with Mr. Rafe, we were interviewing, we had community members interviewing and labor interviewing. We didn't do that as extensively when we did Kern. We did smaller groups. Matter of fact, we didn't even do the community group. We just did administration and the board.
If you want to extend that community group, you already have a built-in.
Yeah, I would
Finance
suggest
Yeah.
we
Finance
would-
committee?
Well, the question is,
Finance audit would be
well, we
my
did.
only-
We had finance in on the administration interviews last time.
Oh,
We had the chairman of the finance audit committee. What was the guy's name?
Mike Tracy.
Mike Tracy.
Mike Tracy. And I'll be honest, there's a different set of eyes on the treasurer search than the superintendent search.
Oh, sure.
Right? When we did a treasurer search, it wasn't the level of interest that we had for the treasurer search. It doesn't mean you don't do it differently, but I don't think we had the feedback on the treasurer search that we had from the superintendent search, because there's a different levels of interest. So, with that said, we would, I would recommend at the August 4th meeting, between now and August 4th, we get some bids in for a search firm. We decide on August 4th who that firm is, have them come in, frankly, that night with a draft approach, make sure that they're prepped. Each one of them should be prepped on how you'd move forward, and then kind of go from there.
Do we have anything big pressing on that agenda,
I think so.
on the August 4th agenda coming up?
Well, we'll have the
Big
second
Gilbane.
bid package, but that
Right.
won't be
And the
the
second
bid
package.
That's not a big discussion.
We have right now tentatively, there's one of our CIP indicators is on community engagement, so Randy's going to give an update on all the community engagement activities. And then, I haven't seen a draft yet, we're just waiting for agenda items. Keep talking, I'll look.
I don't think,
have a
nothing
couple.
is coming to mind that we have to get
Even if you had
done,
three
you know?
firms in, you give them 10 minutes each for
Yeah, I
finance
think
just
we
have
presentation,
to
you
should
can
put
get
it, I
it
think
done
we
in half an
can
hour.
hit that meeting.
We know who they are.
I mean, I'll be honest with you, there's not a lot of differentiation in search firms other than you've got to get comfortable with the consultant that's going to run your search.
What about using some of our resources that we have here? And I'll use Chris as an example here in terms of posting the actual announcement and not having, and doing the profile information, not having this search firm do some of that work.
What's the
Yeah.
savings? I mean,
yeah.
what's the pickup?
I'm not for that. That is, they do the work of the district.
I understand
We
that,
don't
but they're a
dedicate that.
resource of the district also.
I mean,
And,
we get to hire 2 people,
I understand
and
that,
that's,
but they're still a resource of the
If
district.
we're not gonna get a
I understand your
significant-
point, but
We're
they're
not
still
gonna
a
get a
resource.
significant price differential between us doing it and them doing it.
it's
If
a
you're paying the
couple
firm to run a
$100.
search, let them run a search.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to manipulate their standard process to use some of our resources, their resources, let them run their deal.
I would assume they'd use our resources in terms of like our quality profile and.
Well, certainly.
Is that brochure
I
here?
mean,
Yeah.
we did on the last one, Terry did organize the interview times.
Well, she has to, because the search firm doesn't have access to all those
Right,
calendars.
yeah.
Right.
So
but
that's the level of coordination we're talking about.
Right.
There has to be a level of coordination,
Of course.
Yeah.
right, and that's assumed in the pricing of the bid. Every one of those firms last time assumed that superintendent secretary would do all the date setting.
Right.
Coordination of dates. There'd be some linkage with the communications department to help with messaging.
And I think it'll be a matter of us, I appreciate your desire to that separation, and again, I don't know what, and I've only just in my conversation with Dave, I've said, we'll offer to help in any way. I understand, I appreciate that we do have a lot to do, but school's gonna get started, we'll get up and running, and we can help in any way, because obviously the treasurer is an important part of our leadership team, we want to be involved, and help us find the best person, so.
Thoughts, Mindy?
My thoughts are more about the actual bid service person whom we would hire. And I feel that, that when you put, and I don't know if there's a standard, like I know OSBA, it's very public when you apply. It's,
Well, unfortunately, it has to be.
Yeah, they all are.
And those
They all
firms who
are?
are telling us, who will tell people, oh, we'll keep it on the down low, that's against the law.
it is.
Yeah, Ohio Sunshine Law. And I'm not getting into that anymore.
So there's no way to find a treasurer without their district knowing we're looking at them?
Well, as soon as they become a candidate,
Right.
they actually submit an application that's then a public document that typically the media will ask for and will provide, and then it's out there.
So they can reach out and measure interest confidentially with someone,
Right.
but as soon as that person says and makes the application, then it has to be public. That's the only difference.
Right.
So they have to make that decision as a candidate as to whether or not they indeed want their name out there because of their current district, and that happened in the superintendent search. There was one candidate in particular, and we can discuss that some other time because it's too.
We ran a search like that, tried to run a search like that, actually, I'm not sure if it was,
It's Dr. Lucas.
Dr. Lucas.
but was the search before that, Dr. Lucas, it didn't get us a candidate? That was run by
That was-
OSBA?
No, that was run by the ESC.
ESC.
And there weren't any candidates that were Olentangy, it was the Olentangy fit. And so after that, we had a board member who was very well trained in finding executive positions and had the time to do it.
Who was empowered by the board. The board
The
took
board
took
absolutely
an
gave
action
him
to
the power
empower
to do
him to
it.
go find a
And he
candidate.
actually traveled and talked to particular candidates.
Now,
Then
Now-
caught the ire of the dispatch.
Of the dispatch, yes.
Oh.
In the newspaper. But you can do it that way because the board gave him that power
Right.
to do that. And then when he felt that there were candidates that he wanted us all to see, then he presented them to us, but we had the utmost trust that he could do it. I don't have time to do that. I don't have the qualifications.
To do that.
Exactly. So it was a once in a lifetime thing and it worked out well for us.
So maybe if I could circle back to Dave's concern, and I have some similar concerns about our staff and their capabilities, because I don't want to downplay the fact that our staff are very professional, could probably handle the search just fine.
Yeah, I don't think anyone was saying they couldn't do it.
Right.
So can I make this request, and you can say, you don't have to agree with me or not. Whenever we determine who the firm is, if that's the way we go, we could at least ask that that firm meets with Krista and has a discussion about where is their crossover? Where are there places where Krista can take, as our person who controls the tone, as you said, if there's a place where they can find some commonality, perhaps, that happens, and if there's not, there's not, if that's the decision we decide to make. And if Krista says, hey, no, there doesn't make any sense financially or otherwise, let them run it, and then I'll just be the person that helps coordinate with you, then I'm fine with that. I mean,
I would fully support both
just a discussion.
sitting down with Todd, Mr. Meyer.
Yeah, Mr.
and
Meyer,
Ms.
they
Davis,
decide.
Make sure roles and responsibilities are clear. So for example, I mean, the big deliverable in the end is the release, right?
Yes.
So the question is, do you want the firm to draft a release or review it? My sense is we would have the firm draft it, and Krista would review it.
Absolutely.
I would agree
And that would
with
be the best use of her time.
Right.
So she's not drafting.
So
We're
there may
paying the
be
firm
those-
to draft it, let her review it.
Okay,
and
that's
then we'll
fine.
get-
Couple
It's the same thing
little,
with Todd. Make sure Todd goes through the background checks, make sure that they're sufficient, the reference checks are sufficient.
so just to remind me, when we did the superintendent, who, you led that as president of the board, correct?
Yes.
So Dave would lead this as a president of the board, and then would be the person that would be in that discussion, then feed that information back to us as this thing happens, correct?
Mhm.
Now,
Or you can appoint any board member, really.
Yeah, we just did it at the
Because
time.
I got a
what we
full
did
plate
Doc-
as pro temp,
Well, I know, well,
yeah.
because with Dr. Lucas, we appointed the board member, to do it, and he was
Yeah.
not the president at the time.
That's true.
Yeah, any one of us could lead the effort.
Back to the fourth, the community engagement report was right now the only report presentation we have on, not really a discussion item. We had originally had, when it was going to be the 11th, we were going to do the attendance boundaries committee update and the process to name the school, but we're going to push, because of the 4th being earlier, push it to the next 20.
Okay.
So there's right now approval of the preschool handbook, just be a couple, we only have 4 positions left of staff, so it should be pretty light agenda.
and that last meeting of the month got pushed up a day, right? The 28th?
20,
The Wednesday instead of the Thursday, right?
Which one? Of August?
Of August.
25th?
no, I thought that was
No, 25th.
September you were kicking.
Well, that was
around.
for me, but remember Mindy also had.
Oh, I changed.
I may not be
You-
ready.
Okay, you
Yeah.
changed, okay. There's
Okay,
a
hold
lot of
on.
chatter.
Yeah, I may
August?
need to move to August 25th.
I have
meeting.
August 25th on here.
I haven't done.
Is that
done it
wrong?
Twice now.
Wow.
I have the
Hey, look,
25th of
I was the
August.
bad guy.
The 4th and the
last time,
25th.
So I'm all right with that. Okay, you're
Okay.
good.
4th
You
and
guys just let
25th.
us know, so we can make the immediate
Well, I
way.
think we have a consensus that we'll move forward with a search firm.
So how does that work to put out an RFP? Who does that?
That's that's what's next.
The way we did it last time, I emailed 5 firms with a request for proposal. 3 of them responded, 2 of them didn't even respond.
So all we need is that email and we'll resend it out, or tweak it. But I can get with, well, Roger and I can do it, we can get with Krista and tweak that message.
Do you have the name of the firms, and you have all that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, 2 of them, like,
Okay.
4 were in-state, 1 was out-of-state, 1 was in Indiana.
So a question I think I'll have is,
Yeah.
Is
I
one-
think
maybe
we
is
should-
one of the
specialized.
firms the one that poached Mr. Kern?
I
Which one?
would, yeah, I'm
I was-
going to go on record as saying I wouldn't use that firm.
No.
That firm is K through 12.
He was one of the 3 that we
K
interviewed.
through 12.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if
For the
we're,
background.
if we're allowed, but I would tend to
Because they're
agree, is if
making
they've
money off
poached
of
us,
taking
I
our
don't want to.
treasurer.
Yeah,
We've done
that's,
it
a-
twice.
that's a
New Albany and Dublin.
conflict of
Yeah,
interest.
yeah, they've done that twice.
Yeah. We're not using them.
So,
I'm sorry.
If I might suggest, Roger and I could meet with Krista, we can go through those.
I'll send you, there's
Yeah, actually, I probably
OSBA,
have them
ESC,
Finding
Finding
Leaders.
Leaders.
Yeah,
is
Finding
one of them.
Leaders.
I mean, that's one of them.
So I can get to
Who's the
those.
The final 3 was,
I
as
don't
I
remember
recall,
that one
was
either.
Finding Leaders,
I have that file at the
Okay.
house.
Yep.
and then, of course, OSBA.
So we'll do that immediately, and,
And we'll do that right away.
Yeah.
all right.
And
So we'll have a request for proposal on the, or approval
It
of.
doesn't, it doesn't have to be like a full-blown, like 100-page RFP. Literally,
Oh, no.
it was like a paragraph, hey, we're looking for treasurers, send us a
Right.
proposal.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'd send them the 2 dates that, we'd like your proposal by X date, and
we want them here
To
making
extent
a
you advance
presentation.
through the process, we'll have finalist presentations on
Our
August
goal would be
4th.
August 4th, so do we have enough time to get that out, have them respond, and then create a short list of interviews?
Well, if they
That's
can't,
what, 3
yeah.
weeks?
Less than-
The question is if they, part of it is if they can't respond, then
That's 2
maybe
weeks.
they move into as low.
Yeah, Mindy brings up a good point. That is really, really short time. I mean, it's, is there, I mean, we're not going on the ballot, or, is there,
The
is there a
question is,
sense of urgency?
do you want to get, it kind of comes down to how long do you want to have an interim treasurer, and how long do you want to have kind of uncertainty in leadership, right? So we've always tried to move fairly quickly to fill the spots. So it's up to us, we can set the timetable.
So Mr. Kern, though, will be here in providing support to
Through August.
Emily in the interim
Mhm.
position, or whatever that, and so that's until the end of August.
So should we
So-
go ahead and shoot for August 25th, and what, if we change
Yeah.
the date on August, because of your schedule, whatever?
I think we'll have more luck getting search firms in.
I wasn't here for the last treasurer
No.
search. Kevin, is a
Or-
3-week window enough time for them to put that together, do you think?
Ah.
Their RFP probably, well, you would think that they would already,
I got a
Indeed.
text from
They're
the
standard
company,
proposals.
I got a
Yeah.
text from the company the day that was announced Brian left, said, here's
The
the
day that
price.
Dublin announced that
Yes.
Brian is
Right.
moving
Yes,
over there?
that day.
That day.
I remember that day.
So leave it at, go on
So,
for the
so,
4th.
so I mean,
All right, so what we do is we ask, and if someone pushes back, or we get a couple to push
Okay.
back and say they cannot, then.
I mean,
we'll
I
have to
can,
We'll
even
just
if
make
you have
the
the
change
email,
from
I
there.
can
It's
make
not
that
the-
call, I can make calls to the
Overthink that one.
I mean, I can make a call to the ESC,
ESC and OSBA would have us something in a day.
OSBA,
Yeah,
and
all
finance.
right, let's go for August
And to
4th.
tell you the
Okay.
truth, this isn't the busy hiring period.
Not.
No,
You
it's
know?
already passed, so, yeah, they'll be ready.
All right, so
They'll be
we're-
hungry.
So then we would invite them in on the 4th.
Mhm.
Depending on how many we get, we create a short list for August 4th. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, it's
This is-
no more than 3.
Exactly, that's what I'm
Yeah.
thinking. So if we get 5, we'll move it to 3 for the August 4th?
We'd have to have some way to winnow that down.
Well, we'd have to.
Defer to you two guys to look
Yeah.
at
That's fine, we can
Yeah.
do that. Just,
We
we'll
trust
we'll
you.
take a look at it if
Let's see
something
what we
seems
get.
out of line.
And we'll let
Because we're talking, you had mentioned short presentations, when you did treasure search before, what did those firms, because I know for superintendent, we gave them, 20 minutes each, was it, or 30? It wasn't very long, but it was,
Yeah.
It was somewhere between 15 and 20.
so
Because
if we
that burns
said,
an hour.
so if we said 15 in questions,
There'd be plenty of time.
we should be okay.
So then you'd
To be honest, a lot of times they're just going to come in and kind of recap.
Yeah,
the
we're gonna
proposal.
get it all in advance, so
It's
it's.
just a way for us to ask them.
Ask
Will you
questions.
appoint one of those firms at the 4th meeting, or you'll do that at the following meeting, or have a special
I
meeting?
would recommend we point them at the.
I think we did the same night, didn't we?
The same night. Mhm.
Okay.
I think that, because that discussion,
That discussion cannot be held in
Executive
executive session, I say that has to be
Session.
here,
Yep.
so. No reason not to, unless there's something.
The way we did it last time is we had them all present, then we reserved another 15, 20 minutes for discussion among the board. Because we didn't do like a scoring system, we just kind of
Right.
discussed it,
Right. Just by
coalesced around an answer, and then
Right.
took a vote.
Yeah, we did not score, that's correct.
Consensus.
Okay, so we'll shoot for August 4th for a search firm that would be coordinating with staff as appropriate. And we'll shortlist to no more than 3 firms. Roger and I will get together with Krista to talk about posting that RFQ based on what we've done in the past
Yeah.
and wordsmith it.
I think I have the other proposals still. It's on my laptop.
Right, yeah, but you.
I can send those to they were from 2013, only 3 years old.
And I think that would do it. And then the next thing would be a schedule to get to the point of actually bringing somebody on board.
Yeah, it's some of the things we'll need to think about when we talk to the firms. 1 interview or 2. Who do we want in the interview process or processes? Do we want to empower 1 member to negotiate with the finalist on a contract? Because that's kind of how we did it last time. We coalesced around a candidate. The board asked me to negotiate the contract. We negotiated the contract. Because you really can't vote on anything until you have a contract.
Right.
Because then if you can't come to terms, then you got to come back and go back to the list. So. But we can work, once we have a firm, then you can work out that kind of stuff with the firm.
Yeah.
Because they typically each have a process.
Speaking from experience, I'd like to recommend Mr. O'Brien do that. I'd like everybody else to have that slice of heaven. That was in all sincerity, total sincerity. I know it sounded like sarcasm, it wasn't. I had a good lunch out of it.
I feel like I gave it all away.
Oh, here we go.
Okay. Anything else?
You know I gotta fire
We
first
wanna
once
just
in a
touch on
while.
How long we think we should have an interim treasurer, meaning how long should we go?
Well,
until bring
if we
somebody
go
on?
back to when we hired Dr. Lucas, we had an interim superintendent. We had several interim superintendents because we couldn't find the right candidate. So I don't think we should set any specific
Okay.
date. It's just when you find the right candidate.
But I guess in the interim, we'll have to work with Ms. Hatfield, but would she need some staff augmentation?
Exactly.
Because if she takes on the treasurer's role, now the assistant treasurer, there'll be extra demands on their
Yes.
time. And we'll also need to talk about a stipend for
Mhm.
the interim.
Yes.
Which we've done for anybody
We've
who's served
always
in
done.
any interim position.
Is there a way to get some temporary resources to backfill, to help with the workload, particularly if we go for a prolonged period of time? Because say you go to a scenario of, we go through this process and we don't like any of the candidates, and we say, well, maybe we'll start it again in the spring.
Spring.
Then you may need some more permanent resources to help augment staffing needs in the meantime. So we probably should think about that.
Okay. Anything else?
And the good news is we have a strong assistant treasurer, which is good, so we're in good hands there.
We'll move her up a few rows.
There you go.
Anything else?
Mindy, that's your opportunity
Think
to
so.
move to that side. While we have an interim treasurer, not be in the line of the face to
Not be
speak
on the
to.
Just make sure that's your good side.
There's not a good side.
Okay, I think that'll cover it. That was good. So, our next one is any public participation for general comment.
We have no public participation as
We have
I
no public.
know it as of today.
Because there's no-
We just have our favorites here.
Outside public. Okay, well, with that, we'll take a motion to go into executive session pursuant to Ohio Revised Code to consider the employment of a public employee. So can I have a motion, please?
I'll motion.
And a second?
Second. Let Kevin be the second because he did it on everything else.
And any discussion?
Make sure the record reflects that properly, Mr. Bartz.
And if you please call the roll.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mrs. Patrick,
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien,
Yes.
Mrs. Fiesel,
Yes.
Mr. Bartz also says yes.
So the executive session request passes 5-0. With that, we'll go into executive session. There's nothing, no more business for this evening, so except to come back into this room and adjourn. So, thank you.